Hey everybody, Ed O'Keefe here, and another episode of the Ed O'Keefe Show. Today we're going to talk about how I prepared for Kokoro Camp. I just graduated out of class Kokoro 40. Who all my teammates and coaches. By far, uh, besides having children and getting married and winning a couple super high level events with my teams I've coached, this is definitely the experience of a lifetime. The experience of a lifetime. If you are thinking about Kokoro Camp, if you're thinking about anything with SealFit, you just gotta put it on the calendar and do it. So, a couple questions have been coming in is how did I find time to train? How did I train? Being a father of 7 children, running companies, and squeezing it in, training, especially for something like that. That is I don't know. I would let Coach Devine explain it better than I would, but the way I describe Kokoro Camp is that it is the ultimate either prep. He calls it the hardest camp for civilians to go through and to put themselves through. And so, what I just want to do really quickly, and I'll try to be quick, is to kind of give you my perception of I'll just tell you how I trained, and I'll also tell you a full disclaimer in the beginning of all this. You need to take whatever I say as a grain of salt and look at what other guys are doing, and then really create your own formula. But I'll just share what worked for me, how I found the time, because that was one big concern for myself. The first time I ever saw Kokoro was obviously, not obviously, YouTube video of all the pro athletes from CrossFit games going through it. And I remember feeling scared, feeling totally scared, like, oh my God, this looks crazy. And in that one party that's like, yeah, I would love to do that. And then you have like that big but I'm not in shape. Where would I devote the time? Maybe when I was younger. And the funny thing about all those excuses is that they really are just manifestations in your head, because it wasn't until 3 years later. First time I brought it up to my wife, we were pregnant with our number 6 and number 7. Probably the wrong time to bring up to her that I was interested in going to Kokoro Camp for my 38th birthday. It didn't go over too well. So I just turned 40 about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago. Well, you either are or you don't. Actually, 2 months ago, and I had asked her if for my 40th birthday, can that be my birthday present? And it went over much better this time. Kids are a little bit older, and I do CrossFit at CrossFit Beverly about 4 to 5 times a week, depending on how my body feels. I would call myself a hobbyist CrossFitter, so I'm not a games athlete, definitely not a games level athlete or that next level up, and just someone who loves it, loves competing with my teammates daily, loves going through that grind. I love the longer WODs that require you to dig deeper. So when I signed up, I think the first thing that hit me, and I'm going to create a different video on like the biggest lessons I learned at Kokoro, but for this one, but I'll share this one anyway. But the biggest thing that hit me right away, physically, spiritually, mentally, unconsciously, was that when I put that on the date, even though I was shooting for February, so I was going to give myself 4.5 months, 5 months of prep, which I found I didn't need. Now, you may be different. You may need a full year. You may need 1 month. I mean, everyone's different, right? It depends on what you've been doing. And all of a sudden, what kind of clicked in my head was that everything that was not important just got flushed off my calendar and out of my radar. And so what I did is I kind of made the deal with my wife that I was going to take away from work rather than taken away from home with the kids, because the kids are in sports now. They're doing, I'm involved with their getting their lunches ready, getting up in the morning, stuff like that. So I couldn't do like that Ironman type thing where a lot of people are doing triathlons. They're up at 4 a.m. and they're going, and I can't function that way. So what I did is I started off by I have a bunch of resources for you. But I'll just start off what I did is one of the big things is you got to get into SealFit.com, join the membership, and start doing their operating WODs as much as you can. If you're building up on it, that's fine too. You can always send, once you become a member, you can always send questions to the coaches. But I started adding, like, I would go into my class and either I'd come a half hour early or 45 minutes early, warm up, maybe do one chunk of training. And then I would do class with my class. And I felt that was important for me because I enjoy this. I'm at the enjoyment phase of training. I want to train hard, but I want to enjoy it. And I thought it was really important to be around teammates, even if they weren't doing Kokoro, but they were going through class. And I would match up, like, say the, it's going to kill me right here. Like, say the WOD of the day or whatever it was, the work capacity element. I would look at what, like, SealFit programmed, and I would match it up against what we had, and they did the same thing for the strength. And so if I was able to get a good 45 minutes of the, you did warm up, you did range of motion, and then you went into, like, strength, and then we did our work capacity. If that was able to cover a good portion of what the SealFit op WOD of the day was, I would give that points, so to speak. And then if it didn't, or if it was shorted, because what you'll find is that your body's going to want to start going the more you start pushing it. It's very counterintuitive in the sense that you're going to enjoy 90 minutes is not going to seem like a long period of time. 2.5 hours isn't even going to seem that long if you're just following the op WODs and you're moving through them. And then the big things that I hadn't been doing with CrossFit was the durability portion of our SealFit things and the endurance part, right? And that's where we, like, would do farmer carries, 45-pound plate overhead or sandbag overhead, doing walking lunges. And the good thing about, like, SealFit's op WODs is I don't like to think a lot when it comes to training. I love having something programmed or at least around, and I can massage it, and then, and so that really worked for me. Okay. So I'll talk a little bit more about, how I also modified my weeks a little bit in a second, but I want to just give you a couple thoughts here. I went and deep dived in all the videos you see on YouTube, right? And saw all the crazy stuff that goes on. And that was, gives you an idea of what they're going to put you through. And I tried to model that as much as possible on my own. You can't model it perfectly. There's no way. So don't beat yourself up about that. Just have fun with the process. That's the most important thing. Ben Greenfield's articles on Benfield, I'll put the links below, but Ben Greenfield, you just type in Ben Greenfield and Kokoro. He has 3 really lengthy articles about how he went through the academy and how he went through Kokoro Camp, and he's got phenomenal tips there. Okay. I utilize those as, like, literally a Bible, a checklist to order my crap from Amazon and at SealFit, and as well as, like, Hammer Nutrition and some things that Ben recommends. Some of the things that maybe they did in his class, they're definitely not going to do in your class. And you should be okay with that. That's part of the process. One thing I will not do in my videos is share our evolutions. I think there's enough information about the evolutions out there. And I also feel that as we kind of went through it, not knowing what the next thing was we all wanted to know, but not knowing was cool. Because it allows you to stay present, which you'll find is a huge tip. Huge tip. Worked very well. So I got the videos, articles, Ben Greenfield. Oh, Ben's book, Beyond Training. This is what I want to share with you. What was great about, and he's got some other interviews, like with, he's got a great interview with the guy from London Real where he talks about Kokoro Camp in it. And he also talks about in his podcast with Coach Divine about his philosophy on endurance building and how he used to be a guy that would, like, train for Ironmans, train 28, 30 hours a week, and now he only trains 12 to 13, maybe 15 hours a week, give or take. I may butcher that slightly. But he has a methodology on this, and I want to highly recommend it because I felt like I needed to be doing a lot more endurance stuff, like longer and longer and longer. And you just got to read Ben's book because he has some great thoughts on how to use high intensity and then also use I don't know how he'd phrase it, so I'm gonna let him just do it in his book, Beyond Training. Get it? He explains it much better than I'm articulating right now. PT Grinder PT with Coach Brad. Coach Brad was not at our event. He's awesome though. I wish I would have found his stuff sooner and started doing his stuff sooner, because one of the things you'll find is that the more you get comfortable being in the grinder and doing a lot of the calisthenics, the better you'll fare. Because what happens is, someone asked me a question on this, like, hey, when did you have time to rest? And if you're capable of doing the calisthenics, the PT stuff that they put you through, and it's not like you're getting crushed, but you're able to breathe through it and your body's okay with it. Like, everybody's body will fail at some points, right? We all have different thresholds. It's really fun to see like what Coach Brad talks about on his grinder, on his like on all his different stuff, and your abs and your leg levers, your push-ups. And then if you combine that with Coach Divine's breathing strategies, it's just a really, I don't want to use the word peaceful because that might be too soft of a word, but it doesn't have to be bad. You don't have to be afraid of it. You just got to put in the work prior to getting there. The other thing, I mean, because one thing I'll tell you guys is, like, you know, from my experience, I was scared, so terrified of the planking. And I spent a lot of time planking and doing different types of planks and learning how, like, there's a great video where Coach Divine talks about, like, listen to his language patterns, like, because that's so critical, like, now to do. Like, what really worked for me was I listened to Coach Divine's language patterns when he was coaching people during the planking, and you'll what's the word he uses? He uses a great word called some of you guys are resisting. You need to allow. I think he said use the word allow, which is a very metaphysical, spiritual word as well. And I was very, and then surrender is another word a buddy of mine had suggested. Brad Daddis had told me, you know, you need to just surrender the process. And if you plank a lot prior and you don't stress the plank, but you actually embrace it and you learn how to move in the different plank positions, which warrior yoga helps with that. Again, the planking process can be one where you're relaxing internally. You're doing it, but you're able to not put too much energy out while you're in the process. And some of this is part of the process, so you don't need to know right now. You just need to know, like, okay, cool, check. I need to put some extra time in doing push-ups with planks, get in the plank, and do a lot of the grinder PT stuff. Okay, so that's cool there. There's a great video by Coach Mel, Coach John, I think Coach Mark. I may screw that up a little bit and they could yell at me later. But where they talk about 30 days out and they talk about adding the rucking and adding the running. You're going to hear that probably from everybody, so I'm not going to beat up on it too much. I will tell you one thing. I enjoyed adding, like, something that worked well for me was in the op wads and or in certain things, like say if I want to come in, I want to row 1,000 meters or 5,000 meters or 500 meters, run a mile, come in, do strict pull-ups and do like PT, boom, right back on the row, right on the run. That worked for me because I was able to keep a steady pace and push the pace. Whereas I just don't love running 13 miles, 12 miles, 10 miles. And everyone's different. I only did that a couple times, by the way. So, but the interval miles, hitting them hard in conjunction with my op wads or PT or durability or endurance, like in it, that worked out very, very well for me. Joe Stumpf has a great book called The Willing Warrior. it was just awesome. Great book. Just get it. That's all I got to say about that. Um, Mindset. I don't know what I did here. Number two. Yeah, let me go from mindset a little bit. So mindset was, I got a bunch of resources here for you. So Way of the Seal, Unbeatable Mind, must reads in my opinion, and quite frankly, I think you need to start living, like if you plan on doing Kokoro and or 20x or any of the things that Coach Divine and the team has there. I really, for me, it was a very spiritual experience, and so I wanted to deep dive into this to see where I can take my consciousness and go to the next level of who I am as a man and as a dad and as a father of all these children, and what kind of directional pull we can put into the universe. So that was kind of where I was coming at it. Might be a little deep for some of you. And so when I model somebody or something, what intrigued me was that Coach Divine talks about how he enjoyed, there was a point where he started enjoying Hell Week. And so I read Way of the Seal. There's one part in there specifically where he talks about where his BUD/S instructor tried to break him. Find that, read it. Because I wanted to get in the head of like where was Coach Divine at mentally? What operating filter must he have had in order to be in that place where he could be like, easy day. I've done 700 body. No, man, what was he doing? Let's just say burpees for the heck of it. Let's say he was doing 700 burpees and he was still smiling, even though his body was completely cashed. Spiritually, mentally, he was able to have a filter that said, "Hey, you can't break me anymore. Like I'm never gonna quit." And so dive into that, but take it literal. Like when you come to Kokoro, you're gonna have plenty of opportunities to practice the principles that Coach Divine and the coaches teach. You know, like when Coach Smith talks about, he keeps flexing and pointing at his arms, and he keeps saying, "You know why I can go do this is because I got willpower." Like that's the stuff that you could either like say, "Oh, cool, he's got willpower," or you can borrow that and stick it in your neurology and be like, "All right, cool. So do I now." We all do. Let's go. We're all Wolverine. You know, so that's the kind of stuff that I think can make Kokoro so much more fun for you, because it's embracing that process of, wow, I'm getting molded right now, and these things that are kind of intellectual now are now becoming neurological part of my system. I am gaining these superpowers that I've read about or I've seen other people do. You know, I'll tell you one thing too, like Brandon Webb has a good book. I don't know the title of it, but I think Coach Divine has interviewed him in a podcast. There's another one, I think, like where I could not find it. As an Unbeatable Mind member, maybe someone over at SealFit can point me in the right direction. There was a great interview, and it could have been with Coach Brad over at Grinder PT. I could not find it, but I heard it over a year ago. And he talks about how he didn't make it through because of something the first time around, and the second time around, something clicked in his head. But I'm not going to give you the answer to it. Like, I think you should go deep dive and search for it, because there was a pattern that I saw that I emerged when I started studying all these Navy SEALs and even a couple Delta guys whom, when they went, and even a couple Marine snipers and guys, some of the military guys who I spoke with outside of, when they knew I was prepping for this, everyone was so gracious and just so... the only thing that happened when I signed up for Kokoro is more great people came into my life. That's it. It was fucking amazing. Like, people now that would, you know, and that, I think that's the sign of the universe where they're out there ready to help you, but you got to kind of take that first step, you know? And the one thing, like, Tim Ferriss interviewed this one dude named Jocko. It's Tim Ferriss blog. Navy SEAL, check it out. Brandon Webb said it. Marcus Luttrell in Lone Survivor said it, and he said it on YouTube videos as well. Dick Couch's book Warrior Elite, another phenomenal resource. There's more that I read and studied and stuff like that going into this from the mindset perspective, but what they all said that I loved, which I was like, I wanted to experience the feeling of it, because it's all intellectual till you do it, right? is that none, like these guys specifically, I noticed this pattern was that they all said that quitting was never even entered their fucking mind. Like they just said, that is something that I'm closing the door to, and this is it over here, and this is the only way forward. They could kill me, but I'm not quitting, right? And that was a pattern that emerged because you could get caught up in this belief system that everybody wants to quit. I saw my class that graduated, and I can't read what a lot of their minds were saying. I'm sure some of them wanted to quit, and the team, that's why we have a team, right? But there was a lot of guys there who were phenomenal, who just, I knew for a fact from the moment go, there was no way those guys were quitting. They just weren't. And females, by the way, as well. We had a 64-year-old woman, Cynthia, just killed it. Killed it. She was amazing. I know they're going to put more videos out for her. They should, in my opinion. Crandall was another dude who was in their 60s. It was awesome. Number two, just real quick. I mean, actually, I'm at whatever. I flip-flop mindset. And then the only other thing I did for myself personally, this is something that worked for me, was that I created a couple pinnacle type workouts, like 1,000 burpees, 2.5 miles in the sand, where I would do 25 burpees, run 400 meters, 25 burpees, jump in the water, in the lake, soaking wet, full thing. I did that till 1,000 and 2.5 miles. That was, I think someone saw that on YouTube, and then I saw off someone else, and I just did that. It was good for me mentally to sit there and just deal with myself for like almost 3 hours of just monotonously doing the same thing. It was part of my personal criteria that I had to set. Murph is another one that I started training Murph in the 100, 200, 300 model, where I'd run a mile, 100 pull-ups, 200, 300, and then my goal was to get that under. I think my fastest score was around. I'm not even gonna tell you my fastest score because I think you should just. I don't want you to compare to me because it's irrelevant. But it was a good third. I beat the. I think they want you there. I'm trying not to share scores because that's just stupid. But 70 minutes is the criteria. I think. Double check that. And I just wanted to come in a good 13 minutes prior, or actually beat the mile marker in that sequence. And then I would mentally prepare that they may have you break it up. They may not have you break it up. I don't know. I would prepare for both mentally. Because then if they allow you to break it up, then you just mentally break it up. If they don't allow you to break it up, then you are mentally in a very strong space in your head that I can do this and I can bang this out. For those of you who are physical specimens, you're probably listening to me going, Ed, you're like a moron. That's okay. But I'll tell you one thing. When we did ours, we had already been training for a long, long time. You're not going to be your normal human, superhuman self. Which brings me to one other tip I'll give you on that I was thankful for is I did do a ton of strict pull-ups, a ton of push-ups. Body squats was not a problem. What else would you do? Oh, and then the sit-ups. Yeah, I mean, but really the push-ups and the pull-ups. One thing I didn't know before I got there is that when you do the push-ups, you can't leave the straight back position. At least that's my understanding of it. So I did not practice that. So I shook my hands out in the plank. So I'd shake them out and then bang out 5 more, shake them out, bang out 5 more once the lactic acid built up. And there were guys in our group who just crushed it, and everyone's different. And you'll be great if you train for it. The one thing that surprised me about the PT that, again, I'm not giving away any secrets, so I feel comfortable sharing this with you, is that it happens fast and it's off of something. I don't know if we ran a mile or we were out running and doing stuff right before that, and the next thing you know, coach is saying, okay, grab a partner, you're going. Is if you don't properly prepare for that, you're not going to be able to pass it. I'm just going to tell you that because if you're doing 40, say within 2 minutes on your own, and the mark is 50, you're going to be in a little bit more fatigued state. It's going to happen fast, so you can't like rev up like micro ninja power and then just power through it. You can. I mean, maybe you can. Maybe you will power through it. I wouldn't plan for that. I would plan for that you're hitting in the 60s. Like, you're planning to hit that. So with fatigue factor, you're doing it. And as Coach Lance will yell at you, those are minimum standards. So everyone's different, right? So don't stress it. Just do your work. CrossFit does not, with the hand release push-ups and the way WODs work, we just generally don't do a ton of like just strict, fully back. Just strict push-ups. And so the only thing I wish I did a little more specifically on that, because I feel like I could have done push-ups all day long, but the one thing that I wish I did more of is I wish I did more fatigued push-ups, like freaking sprinted the mile. I don't know. I'm just trying to make stuff up. You come in, you do 30 clean and jerks. You do Grace. There you go. That's a great example. You do Grace. Then you got to do your 12 pull-ups right there. Then you got to go do your 50 push-ups. Like just things that induce fatigue, induce high heart rate, and then do it. And because then you'll be like, wow, this is just easy. I'm just doing what I know how to do at this point. So, it worked out. I passed them all. I just was surprised that I didn't have much more. I figured I would have a higher score than I did. Let me just share it that way. And then swimming is one thing I wish I did more of. You don't have to kill yourself, but if you're a very average swimmer, if you improve the average to average plus, you'll probably enjoy your opportunities in the water a little more. Cold stuff. Cold. Freaking love cold. Okay, so I made it. I got a funny story here for you too. So I made it a mission to learn more about how cold water works and how we can. So I started watching listening to podcasts on Wim Hof. Is this dude who teaches different breathing patterns, box breathing. Okay, Coach Divine talks about it. Box breathing. Go get a couple bags of ice, stick them in your tub, cold water on after you put the kids to bed, and do your box breathing in the water. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. You're going to love ice water. You're going to love it. In fact, you're going to love it so much that I don't know if I can share this. So I was sitting there and we're getting killed on the grinder and the ice buckets are out there. And I had done all this training to be in the, to go in the ice bucket. I've been doing all this training every freaking Friday night and every couple nights. After kids went to bed, I'd go in the ice tub, or I actually did homework with my kids while in the ice tub, just getting used to the breathing and getting with it. And I did not get an opportunity to go in the ice bath. So Coach Divine and team, when I come out and visit for something, I'm just admitting now that I was not in the ice bath. But I will tell you, I did ask one of the coaches if I could go in the ice bath, and I was told to stand. I don't know what the hell I was told, but I was told to just stay where the F I was and keep doing what I was told. So it was funny. I think it was because I had a smile on my face the entire time we were on the grinder, and I don't know. I feel bad for all the guys who got ice bath, but it did definitely help. The breathing helped. The cold water training helped immensely for the lake and the ocean. The cold part of that wasn't a problem. Mentally, though, it's all mental. It's all mental. You'll get there. The coaches will do all their work anyhow. And your team, man. Everything's about the team. So that was my last point. On training, I'm probably missing some things. Just real quick, like on rucking, right? Rucking, they say you got to get your body used to the ruck, right? And you got to get your boots broken in. Those are two things everyone's gonna say to you, so that's why I didn't really bring it up. But so what I started doing is around my house is I would just ruck all night, or so in our family we get up, say in our family around 6:30, whatever, my wife or I, whatever, or unless babies are up, so we're up earlier, right? So I didn't worry about sleep deprivation training. We live a very busy life, and we're up in the middle of the night a lot with the kids. We're up and we're moving, like we're literally busy when the kids come home from school to probably 9:30, 10. And so what I would do is I would take, like, if say my daughter's playing basketball, I'd put the jacket on, boom, put the boots on, and I would take the twins, and I would try to get 45 minutes walking one way and coming back, and then I would go to my daughter's practice or game or whatever, take the sack off, just because you don't want to look like an idiot in every gym you go into, which I kind of did sometimes. And then what I would do next is then I would stick it back on, walk home, and then at home I'd keep it on for an hour, hour and a half. Moving up to it, I did a long ruck in the woods, which in Chicago there's not a lot of different off terrain where some of these guys might be a little more used to plugging up the mountains and stuff. And then one day I went to my son's football game and walked around the park with the babies, and I had that ruck on for 4 hours just to get my body used to it, get my body used to it, and get my body used to it. I think that paid off. And I think the reason why that pays off is because mentally you start learning different plateaus and phases of uncomfortableness. Coach Lance has a great video about rucking and just foot care. I had no foot issues, but it's a video I would check out in YouTube if you should just know. It's just great stuff because everyone's feet are different. You're going to have different experiences. I would plan for having problems and then trying to prevent all that stuff prior to it. Last thing I guess from prep work is it's all about the team. The entire experience is about the team. Like that's why I didn't want to share numbers with you, because it's not about the numbers. It's about the team. It is all about the team. And so if you're not a teamwork guy, you got to question that a little bit, because that we are, whatever, you're going to get your own experience. But so the flip side is, if you want to kind of work on some of these attributes, up your game in your box on how you encourage people, or in your gym, or who you're working with, or your whatever. And in a great way to, I really put an intention on working on, when I finish my WODs or finish my workouts, instead of stopping, going to get my water and resting, then possibly going out and encouraging, I tried to shorten that as quickly as possible. Because if I took a sip of water, it was a quick sip, and then I was back out, because I wanted to simulate what it might be like when we get to Kokoro, where, great, you finished, yippee yay, where's your teammates? And so that is a great little, I think, model internally and home. And you don't have to share that with anybody. I would actually suggest you don't. I think you should practice it and see. And plus, if you don't do it a lot now, it's a great way to get outside your comfort zone. One of the big lessons I learned, I'll share in the other video about lessons from Kokoro, was that there's a vast difference between leadership and athleticism. And some guys have both. There was a couple guys there, young guys that were just impeccable. There were some older guys that were impeccable. And it wasn't because of just their athleticism. It was because they had leadership, and they had other people's interests in mind throughout the whole experience. And so that was one of the biggest, everyone says it's all about the team, but it's also about the mental edge, and it's also about prepping. So the reason why I want to do this prep video before I share any lessons with you is that, I see this on the threads of guys going, that's on my bucket list, it's on my bucket list. And you had that kind of mentality, and I have 7 awesome children. It didn't take away any time from my children. In fact, I would say it created more. And I would say the same thing with my relationship with my wife. I would say, besides the week, obviously, I was gone, the 5 days I was gone. It's just priceless experience. I hope everyone gets some kind of opportunity to do something like this. And if you have SealFit in your sights, you get to wear one of these black shirts. Very few people in the world have it. And I haven't washed the thing yet. I'm just wearing it forever. But I want to thank my coaches. I want to thank Commander Mark Devine. He's the best out there. And to all the guys who mentored me along the way, Brad Ritter, Brad Daddis, Ben Greenfield, all my coaches at CrossFit Beverly, and some of my other just high-level martial artist friends who've competed at the pro level, who came and just gave me support. My family, obviously, all those guys who selflessly allowed me to go train and do these things. you will see just an enormous amount of awesomeness. And my teammates at Kokoro 40, because they just rocked it out like nothing else. You know, I think one of the hard things is coming home and, you know, having built such great connections, and next thing you know, you're back in the real world. And so that's where warrior leadership comes. So that's where we're at. So that's it. That's it. Okay. Post your comments below. Let me know what you think. I will do more videos on similar things. We'll be interviewing Ben Greenfield. We're going to be interviewing Mark Devine. I have Coach Price, if I can get him nailed down. We may see if Coach Smith is out there somewhere. And I mean, the coaches are just, these coaches are phenomenal. So, I mean, phenomenal. So if you ever want to be around just some really rad, ridiculously amazing guys and gals, there's a couple females, phenomenal, who just really expect a super high level of execution and performance, and know that you can do it. That's the area. I ramble too long. I could talk all day. All right, peace.